in State College, Pennsylvania, in looking at mental health within the African American community. I also taught there before going to the University of Montana, where I was Director of African American Studies for 7 years. And it was after that point I came to Tennessee and to the Tennessee Board of Regents system. But while I was working on my doctorate degree at Howard University, I worked 2 other positions that I think are very significant to our topic today and some of the issues that might come up in our discussion. One was with the national headquarters of the American Red Cross. We were dealing with HIV/AIDS education across the country, and now that same program is still utilized and throughout the world. Also with the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, where we dealt with crime, criminality, and victims assistance programs. So that was just very important in my entire research, where I deal with mental health, obesity issues, and health issues, criminology, and also in voting issues and those types of concerns and problems.
And you know, Dr. Sanford, looking at all of the information that you have available for us this morning,
yes,
to think in terms of social structures and voting patterns,
yeah,
how would you bring that into some perspective for our viewers this morning?
Okay, I would like viewers to understand that when I talk about that term social structure, that our society is made up of basic 10 institutions, and that we need to feel and understand that we are one of the primary ones, that of the family. Then, of course, we would have education, we'd have religion, you'd have the military as an institution, science, law, government, politics, economics, and then, of course, this new postmodernist age, we have mass media, communications, entertainment is all a part of those 10 institutions that make up the society in which we live in. And I wanted today to try to share some information in regard to looking at social structure of the society, but from a historical point of view, from a long time ago in 1619 to 1719, and all the way up to the present, to see the importance of us voting today and voting patterns.
Very good. And so what we'll do, we've got a commercial break coming up within the next minute and a half. And
Okay,
when we come back during the second segment, what we'll do, we'll get involved with social structures and voting patterns. But say something over the next minute and a half we have in reference to voting itself.
Okay.
Voting, why vote?
Voting is so important, not only for African Americans, but for all of the citizens of the United States. That is one of the part of social structure, meaning the politics of it, that gives us an opportunity as an individual, as a citizen of the United States, to have a voice. And one should be very educated about the issues and concerns that are prevalent within our society. And when those times come to elect officials to represent issues and concerns, you should definitely go out and vote. And I'm hoping that we can see why it is so important, even more so for certain segments of the society, to do that, because people had to die for that right.
And so not only is voting a privilege, but it's also an obligation that you have to each other. We have to each other in order to go out and vote.
Absolutely. Just as a citizen of the United States, just to have that right to vote and to be able to understand what is going on within the social structure, meaning the society and culture in which we live in, and that you are a part of that process in having some impact, and that is your right and privilege and obligation to do so. And
so what we'll do, Dr. Sanford, is to take a commercial break, and then we'll come back and get into other social aspects of the voting situation. Okay. And we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break.
Try to do is kind of link back now to an earlier period when people didn't have that right.
Okay.
And then kind of bring it up.
Okay.
And I'm thinking in mind, so you know, how you have so many people out here. I don't know if I'm going to do it for Bernie. I don't know. I might not vote at all. I don't like her. Yeah. But like you were saying, we have that obligation and that right. So I'm going to put it into that historical context. Try to keep bringing back up social structure.
Yeah, very good. And, okay, yeah. I can
and understanding how the politics and government.
Well, just however you wish to deliver it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all right. Appreciate that. Is it raining out there yet?
No, it wasn't raining when I came in.
Yes. That was a good first segment. Appreciate that first segment. Yeah, during slavery, and ain't that something? All those periods, and we didn't have a voice. And
that's
nothing,
right.
Yes.
Less than a minute. Seconds. Stand by.
And back to social structures on the vote. Thank you and welcome back to the second segment of the show for today. We're talking to Dr. EKSanford from Tennessee State University, and he's talking about the impact of social structures on voting patterns, giving us quite a bit of information in reference to the importance of social structures and social institutions. And so, Dr. Sanford, let's see if we can pick up where we left off the last time, and just give you free rein to speak to some of the issues that we're dealing with this morning.
Okay. I'm sure all of our audience, and every year, July the 4th, we always have a great celebration of the Declarations of Independence, where that quote was, "We with life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." And we all felt that we had that in 1776. But when you look at it historically, you're talking about 176 years of chattel enslavement up to that time of the Declaration of Independence. And when they talked about we the people, it didn't have anything to do with that group of people who were enslaved. So when that whole notion of the truths that all men are created equal, they weren't talking about that group of enslaved people, nor women that were there, but those property owners that had moved from other countries to here. So I want to try to bring that into focus to say by 1863, with the Emancipation Proclamation, the Civil War is over in 1865. Then the 13th Amendment that freed that group of people over 244 years of enslavement. 14th Amendment gave citizenship, and then the 15th Amendment to our topic today was the right to vote. But given that freedom, and given that citizenship, and given that right to vote, another 100 years almost goes by with 81 years of Jim Crow laws that prevented people from actually exercising their constitutional rights. And so many people today, I want us to stress today on the program, that it is a privilege and an obligation for us to participate in the process of bringing about change. And we just so happen to be within a particular year of voting for the next president of the United States, as well as other people out the country. And it's important for everybody to be registered to vote and to vote. Because there were certain time periods where people had to fight. When Dr. Martin Luther King wrote one of his speeches in 1965, he said 100 years later, from 1865, with that constitutional right to vote, that people still did not have the right. So today we have to know that we have to be a part of that process and to do everything that we can do to go out and vote.
Especially, Dr. Sanford, when you recognize that even though we do have the right to vote everywhere, that there are still conspiracies and people who are banding together in order to keep people from exercising the right to vote. Instead of trying to encourage people to vote, they are trying to keep people away from the suffrage.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They're in certain areas, they've gotten very strategic in doing it by possibly bringing certain neighborhoods into other neighborhoods so they know if people do vote that their vote will not be a real count in the entire process, so that they cannot win that particular district. So that has been one of the strategic things that have been going on. And also, people just need to get fired up and wanting to vote as they turn 18 years old, 19 years old, and 20 years old. There could be a large amount of apathy that is within our culture. One of those social structures I talked about was mass media, postmodernist age of using and texting and Facebook, and you feel that you're connected that way and not connected to the society as a citizen. So we need to be very conscious and aware that we need to be educated, need parents to be involved, the institution of religion to be involved, so people will be aware and have the knowledge and the power to know they need to go and fulfill that obligation as well as that privilege. Because so many people struggled and died for the right to vote. And now, there have been many films that have been out there. If you're in undergraduate school or in history classes, you know of that struggle of people being discriminated against. Jim Crow laws asking people to read, and if they couldn't, they didn't have the right, and they should have had the right. Other ways of just preventing people. They were called Jim Crow laws that prevented people. So now you fast forward to the day, and if young people from 18 to 35 years old, they should, and particularly African American or any other minority group or immigrant group, should feel a strong obligation to take that privilege that people had to die for as being a citizen and to vote. So I really encourage that. But I also want to encourage people to be a good educated person and not to fall into the rhetoric that can be stated sometimes, because sometimes you don't know. Educated people will use informed information to encourage people to vote a certain way. So we need to be very, very aware of what the issues are. What proposals are they putting on the table that are really going to help that community in a certain way? Who has the background and the experience of doing those things to be able to do it? Often I use the example